Hey everybody, it's Dr. Kalnicki. Okay, so this lesson is an area review, but it has a little bit of a 7th grade update. So you definitely learned about area last year, and here are some of the formulas that you learned. Actually, you learned the triangle formula, the square or rectangle formula, the parallelogram formula, and then we talked about circle yesterday, and we're going to talk about a little bit about semicircle today. So this is page 6 in your notes, and today should be the 6th. Make sure your cover has the same date for page 6, lesson 8.3. All right, so you should have started off with a partner, using the formulas up here, finding the area of these shapes. So if you haven't done that yet, just pause the video and work with a partner. Make sure you're showing the formula, the plug-in, and the answer. Okay, so if you're back, that means you're ready to go over these. So this is a square. How do I know it's a square? Because it has equal sides. That's how I knew. So I'm going to use the square or rectangle formula, length times width. The length is 12, the width is 12, and when I plug that into my calculator, 144. When we talk about area, remember we talked about how much space it covers it, and so we're using square units. So again, reminder on that. If you don't have all three of those steps with the label, make sure you label it. Again, anything on these notes should be in your notes. Pause the video if you need to. Okay, this next guy is called a parallelogram. I know it's a parallelogram because there are two sets of parallel sides. These two sides are parallel. These two sides are also parallel. Now, a square also is a type of parallelogram, but a square is very particular because it has right angles. And it also has all equal sides. A parallelogram does not. So the formula for a parallelogram is B times H, which is base times height. The base of a shape has to be perpendicular, which means meets at a right angle to the height. So think about the ground and think about you standing up, right? To get your height taken. The ground would be the base and your height would be standing perpendicular or to a right angle to the floor. So the two numbers in this shape are the base, which is 15, and the height, which is 8. So again, putting these in my calculator to get my answer, 15 times 8, 120, because it's inches squared. Moving on. Rectangle. How I knew it's a rectangle? It has right angles in the corners and the sides are not equal. One side is 7, one side is 5. But I'm going to still use the square or rectangle formula, length times width. So the length is 7, the width is 5. My area is going to be 35. Again, label and square units. And finally, a triangle. 1/2 base times height. Same thing, same concept with the base and the height. The base has to be perpendicular to the height. So just like you're standing up to get your height, it has to be perpendicular or meet at a right angle. 1/2, the base of that triangle is 14, the height of that triangle is 10. Final answer on this guy is going to be 70. I type that whole thing in, 70 meters squared. Pause the video if you need to copy down anything. I hope you knew that was a triangle. It's really just because there are 3 sides. It's one of the only shapes that we use that are 3 sides. The rest of these are called quadrilaterals, and I know we've seen that word before. Quad means something that's a quadrilateral has 4 sides. All right. Because we are covering the objects when we talk about area, our units are square units. For example, we either have to write, and this would be terrible to write, you have to write square inches. I prefer inches squared, or even better, inches squared. I like that one the best, I think. It's the shortcut for the word inches and then the squared. And again, you need to use the standard abbreviations for these. So M for meters, centimeters, we got inches, we got centimeters again. MI would be miles, not just M. So again, those 3 steps again, write the formula for the shape that you see or that you're told that it is, plug in what you know, and then again, get all your calculators together to solve. And we also do want to label. All right, if you're ready to go, let's move to the back. So now we're going to step it up a little bit into 7th grade because those are pretty easy to do. 7th grade makes it a little bit trickier because now I have a shape and I have an area, but if you notice there's a variable here for one of the dimensions. And the word dimension is a really good one to talk about. Because a dimension just means a side, and it could be a length or a width, or it could be a height. So dimension, again, the word dimension could just be a side, like a length or a width or a height. So now the first step, again, we're going to start with a formula. Formula for this shape is a parallelogram, so we're going to do base times height. Now it's plug in what I know. Interesting, I know the height, so I'm going to plug in 6, but I also know the area is 48, but I don't know the base, and I'm calling it, or they're calling it W, so I'm just going to put W in there. Now I have to figure out what the missing side is. So my job is to solve. How do I solve that? That's a one-step equation. Draw my line down, identify what operation. Remember, a lot of solving equations is what's happening in your head, looking at that problem and taking a few moments. Remember SpongeBob to pull the drawer out, the filing cabinet drawer, to remember what to do. This is multiplying. To undo multiplying, I need to divide. I'm going to divide both sides by what I want to get rid of or eliminate so I can isolate my variable. I want to get rid of that 6. That way W will be completely isolated. And now I'm just going to do 48 divided by 6, and my answer is going to be 8. Be careful, because 8 is just a dimension. It only gets a label of meters, not meters squared, unless I'm finding the area. So far so good. Let's try another one just like that. So again, I look at the shape. It says what is the missing length? So there is a length, there is a width, and there is the area. Because that is a rectangle, I'm going to use the length times width formula. I'm going to plug in what do I know? I know the area is 256.2 miles squared, and I know one side of that rectangle is 14. I don't know the other side, and they're calling it the letter V. I actually like to have the number, the coefficient in front of the variable rather than this way. I just think it looks nicer. Again, I have to solve because this is multiplying. I have to undo that by doing division. I want to get rid of the number that's next to my variable. And again, going into my calculator, you should be doing the same. I'll give you a second to do it, because I have my answer right now, but I am going to wait for you. So make sure you get your calculators out and you're doing it right along with me. All right, final answer should be 18.3. And again, because it's just a dimension, it's just one side, I'm labeling it miles. All right, so now again, a little more 7th grade. Notice I don't have areas, but I do have dimensions that have variables in them. Again, I'm not going to let that scare me. That's a rectangle, so I'm going to use the length times width formula. And I'm going to decide which one's the length, which one's the width. Doesn't matter because multiplication is commutative, which means I could change the order and we'll get the same answer. So I like to have the 5 in the front because 5 is multiplying x plus 3. And I feel like that looks familiar to you, and that should look familiar to you. Take a moment and think about why does that look familiar and what I have to do for my next step. What is that? What does that look like? I need 5x plus 3's. If you remember, this is called distributing. So I'm going to multiply. Let's think of it the same way. I need 5x plus 3's. You don't have to write this, but look at that. I need 5x plus 3's. So to do that fast, I can do 5 times x. Because if I count all these x's up, I will have 5 of them. And then I have to count all these 3's up, which would take me a while, but 5 times 3 will get me the faster answer. So my area here, actually I forgot to label it, my area here is 5x plus 15 centimeters squared. I'm using squared now because we're talking about area. Again, a little trickier. All right, I'm going to find the area of this shape. This is a triangle. Flip over or make sure you have your formula sheet next to you. Formula of a triangle, 1/2 base times height. Take the formula, plug in what I know. I know 1/2. I know the height. I know the base. I'm specifically putting the 6 first. I'll show you why in a second. And I wrote 2x plus 8 as my base. So here's what I know I can do. I know it's a lot easier to multiply those two together than multiply anything with this expression right here. So I'm just going to do 1/2 times 6, and I get 3. Then I'm left with still multiplying it by this expression, which I can do by distributing. So 3 times 2 is 6 with an x next to it. And 3 times positive 8 is a positive 24. Final answer is going to have inches, and they're going to be squared because we're talking about area. All right, take a moment, make sure you get all those notes down. This is how area and circumference, this is how we're stepping it up into 7th grade. So I hope you guys had a great time learning about this. I'm going to give some more instructions for the sub to do the next activity with you. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.